Now what I'm going to try to do on this video, I'm going to try to take footage from many of the tapes that we already have in inventory and condense down all the modifications, repairs, repaints, anything that might help you in repairing a plane. It comes from many different tapes from many different eras of time, and you'll see probably in some of them I'm a little fatter and a little skinnier and more hair and less teeth or whatever. But anyway, this is just one of the planes that we'll probably be dealing with from time to time. I've replaced bottom blocks, replaced top blocks, whatever, cut flaps, done this, done that, shortened fuselages, whatever. All in an attempt to, and I'll try to explain as much as I can in between the segments. The segments might look a little choppy and from being broken up, taken from so many different videotapes. But the idea is to get information to you that you can possibly use or help in repairing crashed airplanes. That's what this tape is going to be dedicated toward. And this is a brand new tape. This is not the old crash repair tape that was half fly-in sequences. This is an all-new tape. So I hope you can get some information from this that'll really be a big help. And if there's anybody out there that's never crashed a plane, God bless you. Expect Brian Ether here Thursday, so may get some of Brian's stuff on this set of tapes. Now if not, we're obviously going to have tapes at the Nationals, and obviously we'll try to get everybody's planes and flights on that. So I'm kind of looking forward to going. The weather's been pretty decent today, a little bit shifty with the air, but other than that it's been fun. Now I showed just a few minutes of the yellow plane so you could get an idea of what it looked like when it went to the Nats. It was the concourse winner that year in 1992, of course, the original prototype for the Cardinal kit. But as everybody probably knows, we crashed it on Top 20 Day and we did an extensive repair. And I'm going to take the footage from that tape from 1992 and put that footage of the repair of the original Cardinal. That'll be the next footage on here. We did win the Concourse Award. We were pretty much in second place nice and solidly until this plug problem, and we having Jim work on a plug problem right now. We had a whole batch of bad plugs. Jim is going to try to come up with an answer on this this Fox Miracle plug going bad syndrome. We did have 48 plugs. Out of the 48 we found 3 good ones, and I don't know if that's atypical or typical. But several other people did have plug problems at the Nats. This, of course, cut out on Top 20 Day. If you watch the Nats videos, you'll pretty much see the situation here. And we do have a big repair to do, so we're going to try to get this patched up to use it for a test plane from this point forward. And let's hope we still get some good flights out of this guy after this repair is done. This was one heck of a good plane, and I really did hate to see this go needlessly and senselessly, but nothing I can do about it except get busy with the repair. And what we're doing is making just like a jigsaw puzzle out of all the little pieces that we have. Piece together this part of the leading edge. We have to piece together the little parts of the trailing edge. You can see we have quite a bit of little parts here. And it's just a question of fitting them all back. This is the easy wing to do. This is the one that isn't totally broken off. I'm just trying to show the progress little by little on this. We have to make some little plugs, and what we do is just make a little triangle of balsa and shove it down in there, hot stuff it, and then shave it flat. Plug in these holes much like we did on Craig Gunder's plane. And then of course we have to find get the alignment and glue up the extra, the outboard wing. And you notice you can just plug this, shove pieces of balsa down in any of the holes, pieces that are missing. This is all rough. Main thing is to get it super solid. And we'll just go and grind this down with 80 grit paper, sand it. Get on with starting to put some finish on this. See how long this took us to do. A little after 6 right now. That is about all we can do for the first day. We have most of the leading edge flattened out. This one we had to go over twice with some extra DAP. Got a bay out here that had a hole in it. Now one of the main things whenever you're fixing a wing like this, I guess the number one thing to worry about is that the wing isn't going to fold. And in this case, you have to worry about the gear not folding either. So what I did is I turned the ship nose down and just poured glue into the leading edge. Poured a whole tube of hot stuff into each wing panel to try to firm up that sheeting where it's been busted. And you can see it's been busted in a lot of spots. So for one day of repair, we're gonna quit now and go have something to eat. Concourse winter for 3 days anyway. And we'll try to get this patched up. Maybe even get a little more of this on video. We have the dope and the tissue, medium grade tissue and some shrink dope here. Ready to start putting the patches on tomorrow. And obviously they'll take over a period of maybe a week or so to get all the dope on. And maybe even spray it and buff it out if it doesn't come out too bad. Main thing though is we want the mechanics of it to be right. So we can get you know, plenty of flights and plenty of tests in on this airplane. Because this will be the prototype for the 1993 Cardinal, and we'll decide then if we're going to make any subtle changes or just build another reproduction of it, either foam or built up. So for the first day, I guess this was relatively successful, and really hate to see this happen, boy. I can't tell you what a heartbreaker this really is to have to win the Concourse Award and then 48 hours later be doing a repair. And most of all get, I guess the most annoying thing is not being able to compete on Saturday because I lost the pattern points and stuff. Probably would have been second in the circle, so I definitely would have made the top 5. But anyway, that's all water under the dam, and we hope you picked up some ideas on or some inspiration on fixing these things when they break, and they do break regularly. Just knowing that you can fix them is usually worth something. So, all right, go have some dinner. Okay, this is Wednesday, and we have, just want to show for anybody that wants to repair. I've sanded with 320 around the thing, radiused all the bays. Going to use medium silk span to cover this rather than thin, so we have a little more to sand and blend into when we do the painting. This bay came out relatively smooth. In fact, I'm real happy with this guy. Now obviously we're going to sand all the edges smooth. We have to repair that flap where it's broken. I still have to block sand that out. The other step then is we're going to put at least 5 coats of clear dope on here. So this becomes very rigid and hard because we don't have real structure here. The wood has cracks and breaks. And it'll give us a lot more material to sand into it. A little bit extra weight won't mean anything on this job. This plane is too light anyway. Make sure all the edges are radius, just like you would do any open base structure, standard procedure. Get a nice bevel and radius in the leading edge. Again, you can block sand right into your clear finish here. You can't feel this if you close your eyes. We've got a nice smooth finish here. And the clear dope, we'll let about 2 hours go between each coat. It's really hot today. We have a fan on. Try to cool ourselves off. And anyway, then we'll try to get the silk span on later today. This one still has to be sanded. This one is rough. This one we still have to block sand in, and of course we got to flip it over, and we have 2 big patches on the bottom. So little by little, this is the second day of the repair, and already the airplane seems to be in one piece. And we're hoping we haven't messed up any of the alignment. We've done all the realignment by eye. I know Frank McMillan had just written a great thing about how to line up the rods and stuff, but since we're only going to be using this plane for a test plane, I don't think we're going to be involved in spending all that time and energy, and we will be building another one, or maybe two over the winter. So anyway, for this much of this part of the job, we're going to go on and we'll pick this up on the next coat, get the 5 coats of clear on this. Now, one of the things we did have from the plane hitting the ground, we had a big chunk taken out of the tip here. I just want to show this on the video for might help somebody. I've block sanded this in, and you can see I've feathered into the tissue, but here's a big chunk of raw wood. Now this is another area. What we're going to do is just rub some thick hot stuff on here with a paper towel to firm up the wood. Still a little flimsy, and obviously from all the joints and cracks. Same thing out here, and the same thing on the tip weight box. Got some scratches here. When you want to seal up raw wood, and here you've blended in raw wood into paint. Now I can rub my finger over this. If I close my eye, I can't see where you can't even feel where it is. Just take some hot stuff, put it on, and rub it with a paper towel, and get the towel off. And you'll see that hardens up the wood, and then you can block sand with 320 or 400. And now we can spray this with, just spray it with yellow paint and buff it out. Nice little trick. Obviously the silk span areas we're going to have to use dope on and whatever. But nice little trick. Hope you can take advantage of it. Hope you can get your repair work, you know, at least acceptable to you, if not concourse winning. So we've laid out the tissue here first, laid out the patch, attached it with clear, obviously. We're going to let the clear dry probably for an hour or so, and it's so hot outside, it's up in the 90s. We'll probably just take this and put it in the sun, let this tissue dry up. And then we'll shrink the tissue with Windex. Shrinking the tissue with Windex will clean that all up and tighten it up, and then put on 2 coats of shrink dope, and obviously make sure they're shrink dope and not normal dope. Get everything up drum tight. And before we go on with the finish, we're going to run a real high-tech test on this. I'm going to try to get the wing at the 2 tips and press down on the middle both ways and make sure we haven't lost any of the structure. What the structure is, we've created a stress riser somewhere in this thing. And we'll flip it over and put the tissue, and on top we have 3 here. Anytime you do this kind of work, good tip. Anytime you do this work, always do the bottom first. Because if you make a mistake, or you have to get familiar with the equipment, or get some thinner in or some thinner out, always do the bottom first. Then when you get to the top, hopefully you'll have less wrinkles and less problems. And obviously you want to do this in a hurry now. You don't want to do the bottom and shrink it and just let it wait. You want to get both sides, and then both sides drying equally, the tissue drying equally, the water or Windex equally, and then the shrink dope equally. So we can kind of drum this up, I hope, by tonight. Hope to get this finished. And obviously, because we have so much humidity, I've had to make the dope really thin. Really had to thin the dope out. Anyway, this is almost getting to be the end of the second day of the repair, and being tired of doing this. Obviously, it's this is not the most fun job in the world. But you'll live to fly again, and we'll learn some stuff on this that. Obviously we'll put into the 93 Cardinal, and then hopefully each year upgrade this design a little bit, and by having 2 of them now, Dave's and mine, we can kind of see at what weight they fly the best, and what CG location, and obviously test different motors and pipes, which is one of the things I want to do. We're almost finished for the day here. Almost time to leave for the home. And we got the tissue on. And I shot a little bit of Windex on it to try to let it dry up. When it dries, I'll give it about 15, you can see the wrinkles in it, give it about 15 minutes to dry. Let it drum up, and maybe even get a coat of clear on before we leave for the shop. I got the tip weight box sanded out while we were off camera. And I sanded down the wheel pants and touched up all the little bad spots on the wheel pants. What I'm going to probably do, if I have a little time later, I'm going to take the cowling off. The cowling has Imron on it. Sand the Imron down. get another coat of Imron on it. I'll do the wheel pants and the cowling in Imron. That's usually pretty durable, pretty bulletproof stuff. But I'm not going to do the rest of the plane in Imron. Just going to do the wheel pants and the cowl. One thing about doing the cowling in Imron, you don't get any fuel. You can just pour fuel right on the cowling. It won't even matter. And what I'll probably do is, while we're waiting for some of these coats to dry, I'll pull out the header and the pipe, take the header over and get it blue anodized to match the canopy. So, got a little thing. We'll pretty this guy up. We'll get him back flying. Okay, we have 5 coats of clear on here now, all shrink dope. We hit this with a hairdryer very gingerly, just to get it to dry up a little faster, trying to move along on this repair. I just wanted to show this technique of, we mixed up a little bit of filler. We're only putting filler on cap strips and the wood parts. Again, 5 coats of clear would be step 1, maybe 3 coats of filler. Tomorrow we'll try to sand it out. And then from that point on, try to be very careful about getting just the right amount of paint on. Alright, time to go home. We got all the filler on. You notice how the filler goes out over the edge on this? Just like as if you were building a plane. Another 5 coats of dope on this. 4 dried with a hairdryer, even though that's not a great idea. And we'll pick up on this repair tomorrow or the next day we do get to work on it. We spent about 3 hours sanding this out, putting more filler on. And then the next step is, I just wanted to show this on a video too, the next step is to get out the tube of nitro stain, red lead, whatever you want to call it. Fill in all the little rough spots, where we have a spot in the back of the flap to be patched, and up here. And that one big open bay came out relatively smooth, we don't need any on that. And obviously we'll sand this down, shoot some primer this afternoon. And maybe even get some of the purple started. Yeah, we'll see. Now we got the first coat of auto primer on one side. On this side we have sanded out. 600 wet with M600 Sikkens in a spray bottle. The whole trick is to get it all blended in. You absolutely can't feel where one begins and one ends. That's the whole trick. If you still find some little rough spots, you can go back with some red lead. I see we have a little rough spot right there. Go back and red lead it over, no problem.
Clear blessing tonight for fireworks, low as 60. Tomorrow, sun and clouds, a high near 80. Nice not bad. Saturday the 4th appears to be...
Well, we're getting ready to go over the 4th of July celebration. This is about all we're going to do tonight. We did get it masked off. We did get a coat of silver on, so that's one step. Now we'll let this dry overnight. We're going to reshoot the purple and the blue, and probably do away with the lettering altogether, just to expedite this, since this is only going to be a test plane from this point on. But it looks like the repair, very ironic that the repair on the bottom did not come out well, and the repair on the top looks halfway decent. Usually whenever you have a problem, it'll always be on the top, almost invariably. So right now we're real happy with the way this looks like it's going to work out. We'll let it dry overnight. And actually we won't even be able to work on this until Monday again, because we have commitments, family commitments for the weekend. So we'll start back on the trim Monday, and maybe by the end of next week, middle or end of next week, we'll be ready to put the stuff back in. We got the header out being anodized right now. Have another coat of resin to seal up the old pipe. Still have to put some clear Imron on the wheel pants and cowl, and we still have to do some work on a tip weight box, but the repair's moving right along. Oh, thank God the 4th of July is over. Anyway, we're trying to make a little bit of a change to the way the trim was so we don't have to go back and block out all the letters, which was really a monumental job doing all there's about 8-10 different colors in the way the letters were. All the fogging and masking and back masking and mixing metallics and whatever. So we're not going to do lettering. We're probably going to do some kind of letraset lettering, and we'll just make this bar across the back a little alteration to the trim scheme. And we're going to make it candy blue to kind of blend in with the canopy. Add an extra trim color here to try to fancy it up somewhat. So that's the job for today. Obviously we'll have to let this dry for a while before we can back mask the purple. And then another day and then back mask the yellow, or at least if we have a nice warm day, which we don't today, we can go ahead and do that. So there'll actually be 3 back maskings here to do this repair. Kind of labor intensive, but right now the gnats are over and it's a whole year till next year, so we don't really care. We're just going to try to repair this guy and get as much use out of him as we possibly can as a test plane. Okay, we got the first color of candy blue on. Obviously got to let this dry now for a while. If it was a little bit sunnier out, we'd put this out in the sun to dry, but I'm certainly not going to try that today. It looks like rain. Anyway, first color's on, then we'll go on to doing some of the other little peripheral work. Now one of the things we did do, we took the cowling, recoated it with Imron, took the wheel pants, put another nice coat of Imron on the wheel pants, and we have the box of stuff, recoated the pipe, another coat of epoxy to seal up all the pinholes from about say 700 flights that are on this pipe now. And there's a couple other little parts in here we're going to try to touch up. We want to touch up the gear blocks. We're going to take the tail weight, the solder that we had wrapped on a tail wheel, and permanently mount it inside the body in a little hatch. So we got plenty of stuff to keep us busy for the rest of the day here. I pulled off all the masking tape. In fact, we have a whole garbage can full of masking tape here. Went out and bought some fresh professional grade masking tape so we can do the final. We need, where it's silver, we need to do the purple now, so we'll obviously back mask everything except the silver. Go in this afternoon. I hope it's the rain has stopped enough that we can get some of this painting done. Get the purple painted, and then we'll back mask the purple and blue and shoot the yellow. And this repair will oh my God, idiot left the phone off the hook here. Anyway, hope that seeing how some of these repairs work out will be a big help to you somewhere down the road. You know, even if you're El Mundro, you'll wind up lunching a plane, and even the best pilots in the world do have these little accidents and the need to make the plane whole again. And it really has to be really gone before you should give up. I hope that's one of the things you're going to get from seeing this repair, is knowing that you too can, with a little patience and a little, maybe a few phone calls down to El Mundro, you'll have the technology to put one of these guys back together and save yourself a whole winter. In this case, this plane could not be replaced because I used up all, the only good wood I had when I built it.
Hey, yeah, but that's a good, that was worthwhile repairing, forget it. Yeah.
Now can you imagine this? John DiTavio is here criticizing my repair. Can you imagine? He says this looks a little sloppy.
I told him he should give me, I told him he should give me the airplane.
Windy Krasnowski. Anyway, we did get the purple on this afternoon. Tomorrow we'll start on patching the yellow and ink lines and lettering, and oh my God, it's gonna be a long day. Now we've got this purple roughed in, the blue roughed in. We still have to shoot the yellow on the leading edge. Have to shoot the yellow on this leading edge. And obviously go back and do lettering and ink lines and all that whatnot before we shoot the clear. And what we're going to try to do is mask off the whole body except for the wing. And put on maybe 6 or 8 coats of clear. And start knocking it down as soon as we can. Got a nice warm day, so we probably will get some of this done today. But we'll back mask now and shoot the yellow. Can you believe Barbarella's on TV? I gotta watch that while I'm repairing a plane. Barbarella. Okay, we have the back masking done. We're gonna load up the gun and start shooting the yellow. Now, I just wanted to show, the purpose of showing that is that you don't have to mask off the whole plane. You really only have to mask about 6 inches from where you're spraying. And the other purpose of this whole thing, now that we have the yellow on here, and obviously it's still kind of rough till we get it feathered in with the clear. The purpose of this whole thing is when you want to touch up a plane, obviously you want to sand it with M600, the Sikkens. And obviously the other thing that you want to do is back mask off as much as you can. Now if you get a little overspray, you'll see up on the nose right about here we have some overspray. When the job is done, we'll compound it out. We're going to compound it anyway. Somebody that was helping me the other day, I won't mention any names, but they put their fingerprint right in the back here with wet paint on their hand. That'll compound right off. And we'll compound off all the dust and stuff that's on the tail. Don't get all nervous about it. There's plenty of oil and wax on the rest of the plane. And when we buff it out, we're going to want to buff the whole thing out anyway. Now today what we did, masked off the body, pulled off all the tape of course and touched up the little spots. Masked off the entire body, towels and paper. Shot a few coats of light coat clear on a wing so that we can block sand in all these edges, and the edges are very rough. And we have to see right here where the line is shot, and we have to touch up the ink lines. But what I want to do is get some light coat on here so I could sand it 600 paper and get a nice surface I can do my ink on. Because the humidity is so high today, it's blushed out, and I really didn't want to put any more clear on it, or I might have put another coat. But That's it for today because of the humidity. We'll have to wait for a day with a little less humidity. And then the next step in this repair, obviously, is we're going to dig in. We're going to go get some 600 paper and try to block sand this whole wing out, everything that we sprayed yesterday. You can see some of the bad spots have come through the silver. We're going to flatten this all out. Now pretty much you can't feel any of the lines. So this step will just be to flatten everything out. And there was too much humidity in there. You can see the paint is dried kind of dull and fuzzy. But we want to get rid of the edges and lines, and we want it to seal up. This one is particularly bad back here. And then we'll do with an ink pen is trying to hide the lines here. So that'll be this afternoon's thing, and block sanding this out now with Sikkens M600 is the ticket. We're going to be using M600 in a Windex bottle. Hold on, got to get the phone. What we're going to do is take some 600 sandpaper, 600 wet and dry, and some of the Sikkens. And the Sikkens is put in a Windex bottle so we can conveniently spray it on and just go sanding. All we want to do with this coat is get all the paint edges flattened out, and we're going to have to go back with a brush and even up all the paint edges that are bad. This kind of a repair uses Sikkens M600, which is the equivalent of Prepsol. Get on all the open bays, 600 sandpaper. Once you get everything kind of knocked down and flat on one panel, which probably would take, I'm guessing, half an hour or so a panel, we'll be ready to go by and do some ink lines and touch up. The M600 constantly kills off the contamination from your hands. Gets all the rough edges down. And anywhere we want to feather in a repair into the old original yellow paint, 600 and 600 sandpaper. That's a good way to remember it, I guess. Anyway, okay, we've got enough of this action on here. We'll spend about a half hour per panel, and then we're going to go by and touch up all the little imperfections in this. And it's really like a 2 or 3 step process because everything is so rough here. Now this morning all we did was spray on a little more clear, spray it on nice and dry. Gonna let this dry now till Monday before we start inking it. We'll probably, tomorrow is the Circle Burner July contest, so we won't be working on this today. I mean tomorrow. We're gonna go up to Club Field and see if we can help mow the grass and stuff. Real important now, if you're watching this video, if you're interested, last night at the Circle Burner meeting, I put on a finishing demo that I videotaped. I have 2 hours of video of the finishing seminar. Complete finishing, a lot of tips, a lot of tricks. If you want a copy, obviously, pop a check for 15 bucks in the mail and I'll get one out to you. We have it videoed and we have it from 2 separate camera angles, so it should, we haven't edited it down yet. We should have it ready to go real soon. And obviously one of the things we discussed was this repair and other repairs that I have done in the recent time. So if you're interested in that video, get a copy of it. You know, obviously just tell me you want the finishing forum, finishing seminar, I don't know what I'm even going to call it yet. And it'll help you in your finishing techniques, that's for sure. It'll help you in any repair you have to do, that's for sure. Alright, so we'll pick this up Monday when we get back in the shop. We're going to try to assemble this guy as soon as the Imron cures off. We did shoot the final top coat of clear with Imron, and it'll be interesting to see, since it's over 90 degrees out there, how long it's going to take to dry up. Give it about an hour or so and we'll see if it's dry to the touch. Now the paint is a little bit dry to the touch, but certainly not going to push the issue here. It's a nice warm day. This should dry up real soon. We'll let this dry up and we'll probably come back tomorrow, pull the paper off. The gloss is acceptable, but I don't want to wind up putting fingerprints in this thing now. Now we're about ready to assemble this guy. It's getting too late. We'll probably do this tomorrow. But anyway, pulled off all of the paper. Looks like we have a reasonable gloss on the wing. The wing is dry now to the touch. And of course we'll buff it out so it'll match the body. Match the tail. We got a couple of bad spots right here we got to buff out. We got a little bit of overspray on the scoop, I noticed. Got some overspray up on the front there by the scoop where it bled through. Other than that, we're going to buff it out, clean it up, and try to get some flying in it. One of the things I do want to do in the near future, I built this plane without adjustable lead outs, and since there are some other things I want to try now, I want to retrofit adjustable lead outs somewhere down the road. Certainly not now. I want to go get some flights on this. Well, the only thing left on this repair now is going to be to buff out the top of the wing a little bit. Have some dust in the Imron, of course, which you always have. This repair added about 5 ounces, and we're dying to get out and see if we can, I don't know, just hope we get some flying on this guy. I hope you got some useful information out of seeing that repair. Now, one of the things we've done with all of these planes is retrofit motors. We've gone from having 60s to 51s to 46s to 40s to who knows, Russian motors, German motors, whatever. And in doing so, it requires a little bit of modification of the plane. When we switched the planes over to pipe planes and did extensive testing, and of course we basically have retrofit them all back to 60s, it required some paint repair and some fitting and some different things that may or may not be of a value to you. And I want to run some of these. A real quick one is the one we did on Tradition. And one we did on this one, if we have room later on, we'll put this on the video too. Retrofitting motors and changing the bottom of the... Now, one of the projects we're going to work on next, we're going to try to get this guy ready for a season as a backup quarterback. And there's a few little repairs we need to do on it, a couple of spots to touch up, similar to the Red Baron. We also want to replace the whole bottom of the airplane. I don't know if you've ever seen the bottom of this, but the bottom really took a beating. We had to replace the tail wheel. Of course, this whole piece in here needs to be repaired and replaced. So we're going to try to just give a little, and this won't be too lengthy, just some little ideas of how to do this. One of the things we're going to do, before we start any repair on this, before we even start the repair, we want to get everything wiped down with Sikkens M600. Now what I've done, I put it in a spray bottle anyway, and we want to wipe the whole plane down with M600 now. Step one is let's wipe the whole plane down, get all the grease and oil so you don't wind up having it on your hands for the whole duration of the the repair job. Any repair job you start, get the whole plane wiped down with M600 first. Okay, now I know I didn't show this on camera before, but this is a WD-40 bottle. I don't want you to think I'm wiping this plane down with oil or anything like that. This is Sikkens M600. This bottle seems to be a little better than the normal ones. If you wind up putting the M600 in a Windex bottle, what happens is the bottle self-destructs and it melts and everything in time. So what I like to do is squeeze the bottle a little bit, get the liquid going, get the whole plane wiped down with M600. Now there's a lot of little spots on here that are going to need to be touched up. We're going to make a couple little modifications to it. But step one is always, before you start doing a repair, get that whole thing wiped down. And you can actually see, if you can see up close, see the grit and the oil and the wax and everything comes right off. Get in the hinge lines good. Again, if you've seen the video previous to this, you saw what we did to the Red Baron. I like to give this about 2 wipes. Gets it nice and clean. And we'll just go around the whole plane. Get it nice and clean before we start cutting and hacking and sanding and whatever. Good product if you haven't seen it on some of the other videos. That Sikkens M600. Again, getting the whole plane thoroughly cleaned. What this will allow is we're not going to be picking up the oil with our fingertips and smearing it all over the repair work and all over the parts, the new parts that we're going to be putting on here. Remember, this is a plane that was made in '86, so it's really 6 years old. It's had thousands of flights. And because it's a good flying plane, it's worth doing a little maintenance to keep it nice. It's worth just not letting it go down the tubes. Now, one of the things I try to do when I clean this all up, I try to look around for all the little nicks and dings and things I need to fix. Now you can see how much, wear and tear is on the bottom of this plane. You can get an idea here. This was just a temporary thing so we could test tune pipes. You can also see just how much we've worn out the wheels from all this flying. We really do need a new set of wheels. They're both worn out, in fact. So we're going to do some work on the landing gear. We're going to just cut the bottom of this plane right off, and this is something I've been wanting to do for a long time. It needs to have the bottom block replaced. It's going to be kind of a time-consuming job from this point of view. And we want to repair up these landing gear if we can. A couple of other little modifications. And while I have it apart like this, I'll give Big Jim a call and see if there's anything else he wants to try in terms of experiments on this, so that the next time we get together with you, we can we can get some test flights on this and see what worked and what didn't work. So we're all cleaned up now. We're ready to cut the bottom of the plane off. Now before you actually start cutting, I've been trying to use these scalpel blades up that Midgley sent. Always when you're going to cut like this, use a brand new blade. Now I want to cut right up to the plywood. This plane has plywood doublers. I want to cut right up to the plywood. Well, let's see what it looks like inside. Now as we start cutting, I can see this is perfectly dry in here. No oil got in here at all. Look at this, Giants versus Skins. That was a football game I was watching when I built the plane. Anyway, we're going to continue on and just cut the whole bottom of the plane right off here. You can see all the junk that we got out of here. All of these parts are oil soaked. That's why look at the oil coming off of there. Now what we'll do is we'll weigh these up and see how much they weigh, and then we'll know when we put the new bottom block on just how much we're going to be picking up on the plane. I hope we're going to not pick up much at all, obviously. Now, a good trick, when you're going to do a repair on something that's got a lot of oil on it, I'm going to take some baking soda here and just sprinkle it in the back of the plane. In fact, I'm just going to let it just sit in there overnight. I'll get an old paintbrush. Let it pick up as much of the oil as possible. That is about all I'm going to do tonight. I'm going to let this pick up the oil. And what I'll do is get an old paintbrush. I think we got an old junky one here. Oh, we always have junky. And just rub this baking soda into the oil. It acts like kitty litter. It'll pick some of it up. And then we'll vacuum it up. Now this is really not that oil soaked. It's not in terrible shape, but any oil we can get out of it now. I know Mike Rogers' plane picked up a lot of oil. He was complaining about it. Had a hole up in the cowling. So we're going to get this rushed in. And what we'll do, we'll let it sit overnight. We'll pick this up in the morning and hope that that this by then has picked up most of the oil. Just grind it right in. We're going to vacuum it right up. The old tradition has a geodetic body, so there's still a lot of strength in it, even without the bottom block. Because we want to get a good bond to the new wood. And then just grind it in. That's the only thing you can do here, especially in the back. The further back in the plane you can get rid of the oil, the better it'll be. Okay, we're going to let that sit overnight. We'll come back to it in the morning. Now this morning we got up and vacuumed up all of the, I guess you can see there's still a lot of loose stuff in here. We vacuumed it up real good. Now what would be real handy right now if we had an air compressor in here, we don't have our air compressor set up yet, but we're going to have to set it up today because we're going to do some spraying. Anyway, we could get all this, the baking soda out. What we're going to do is, it's really cold outside, so we're going to take it outside and just blow it out outside off camera, then we'll bring it back in here, and then we'll start today's, well, shall we call it bottom block lobotomy, whatever. Okay, we're back from blowing all, in fact there's still some in here, even after blowing all this junk out. Anyway, this feels relatively dry now, and the word relative here is important. Now what I've done is I've taken a sanding block, and what I want to do is true up the edge so that we can get a nice fit to the bottom. And it's supposed to be some material called KR2 that works real well too. I don't have it, so I can't either recommend it or tell you to forget about it. We just want to get the surface a little bit trued up here. Let's see if we can get back here a little bit. Get this surface trued up. And then what we're going to do is go through all our wood. Try to pick up a reasonable bottom block here. And what I love about using this stuff is it just winds up getting everywhere, but it really does pick the oil out. This thing for all purposes is as dry as you can get it right now. And remember, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be like a totally new airplane, but even if you had some extra in there, you could get in with your finger and maybe, in fact I see there's still a little bit here. Get in there maybe with a razor blade. Let's see, I see we have a couple little spots there. Get in with a nice razor and kind of scoop out the junk. Yeah, this seems to be working pretty good. In fact, we broke the razor. Anyway, you do get the junk coming off, and what it is, that's baking soda with oil still soaked on it. So what we'll do some of it off camera here so this doesn't get to be too lengthy. Not when I'll make a project out of this. Oh, I put the blade on backwards. Anyway, what we'll try to do is get in here and just easily scrape out some of the material. And you can see it comes right out. It's not a problem getting it out. Just get it off. And that's baking soda with oil already soaked up in it. Hey, here's a good little tip. I just took as a number 26 blade, and instead of using the point, I'm using the back of it. And it's getting the baking soda right off the wood. In fact, it's really taking a nice chunk of the junk right off of here. And this is one of the problems you have when you have a body that has a leak in it or you want to get a repair on it, this is a tip that's worth its weight in gold. Get in there with a 26 blade, the back of it, not the sharp side. That's really working well. I can get that right out. Now you can see, now I can touch raw wood here, and I'll do the same thing. In fact, I'll do this off camera. I can just keep scraping away here. You don't want to make the body too thin inside, that's for sure. Now, I just want to show this on camera. This is a set of wood knives that Jim Damarel bought me when he was in China. And I've just been playing with these. This one right here is exceptionally good. Again, I don't know that everybody's going to have a set of these, but just to get in there and scoop out, and you can see this takes it right off. It just takes it right off. So anyway, if you do a little experiment, you'll find a way, any one of these blades that can get the stuff right off. Now with all that cleaned up, what we want to do is take a little bit of CA and run a bead right along the edge, and this will get a good penetration right into the wood. Got to go kind of slow here, because we want to have a nice clean surface to get this bottom block hooked onto. We don't want to be gluing it onto, really, we don't have much wood here to begin with. Maybe it's a 16th. Just get a bead of thin CA on there. That'll give us a little foundation to hook, get our bottom block on. What we're going to do next is run over and pick out the best of the blocks. We're going to use a 1/2-inch piece back here. But get a bead on everything. Now obviously we don't want to add a whole lot of weight here, that's the problem. If we had a super light plane, it wouldn't matter if we added a lot of weight. I want to get up by the nose too. But this plane is good and oil soaked, so we're really trying to do this with the minimum amount of wood, glue, and paint. And if you remember the old trick, once you get the oil out of it, or most of the oil, get some thin CA on that oil soaked wood. That thin CA, the thin CA is capillary, so it gets down underneath the oil and gets a good grip. Now on top of this, now we'll have a half chance, very small chance anyway, of getting the block to hold on real good. Because don't forget, we're going to have to glue it on, tack it, hollow it. Alright, now all I have to do here is I have to get this, that I have a good surface, a nice true surface to glue the block to. Get a little bit of sanding with the block in here. We're pretty much ready to put the block on. The next step is we're going to fit up this block. You have to cut a little notch. You have to bring it right up to the landing gear notch. Cut a little notch for the tail wheel. Let's see, get that even with that, and we know exactly where the notch will be for the tail wheel. Okay, the next step will be get that tacked into position. Oh, well, before we even tack it in, let me get over here. Before we even tack it in, let's cut that notch for the tail wheel and then trace it out. We can lop off all the extra wood. We can get the profile shape of that done right now. Okay, now because we did the CA, we have a nice bond, and we'll be able to tack glue this right into position here. So what we're going to do is just get this on here, trace it out with a pen, get the shape that we want to have, and then we'll cut the rest off with the jigsaw so we don't have to carve that much once it's in position. And obviously we'll put a little extension on the rudder here with a separate piece of wood. Okay, now you can see we are missing a little spot. You can't get underneath the wing here. You kind of have to interpolate that. So what I'll do is I'll leave this a little bit oversized for now. And I want to connect the dots up here. I'll leave it plenty oversized. We can get in there with the knife later. Okay, so we have the basic outline shape. Now I'll just go over to the jigsaw and saw that right up. Now we left it, you can see we left it plenty oversized. The next step is just going to get this tack glued in position with a little bit of CA. Make sure it isn't hanging over one way or the other. And because now you're gluing into CA, it won't really be a problem. Okay, we got the back piece all glued on here now, nice and solid. Now what we'll do, we're going to just repeat the procedure up here, make a little piece for the front with the piece that's left over. Alright, we have a rough cut now on just the block, and we're going to start trimming that in the same as the back piece. Okay, the blocks are both tacked in, and now it's just a question of carving them to the outside shape. You know, that's after a while, feedback. Taking it apart. Now we have the front kind of roughed in now, and we're just going to repeat on the back. We'll put a lot of this on video. Just going to repeat the rough carving at the back of the block. Now I got the cowl block all hollowed out here. What I'm going to do now is epoxy it and tape it in position with some masking tape. Get plenty of epoxy on the inside so that it's fuel proof, of course. This is a good spot to run a sanding block down anyway, too. Again, we're trying not to add a lot of weight here if we can help it. But for sure now we want to use some epoxy to put this on for the permanent, you know, it's going to be on there for hopefully forever anyway. Now in the last couple hours we popped the bottom block off, hollowed it out, because we had to make a little patch in here. We pulled a little piece of this wood back here that was oil soaked off, made a little patch. Now that's one of the things I talked about on a video before, how to make a plug. We're going to try to kind of blend this in and get a little better shape back there. We got this nice and thin, you can just press it down with your finger. Now that it's hot stuffed on permanently, now I want to get that joint with a sanding block. Work that joint real good. Get as much of the joint smooth as I possibly can. Again, when you're going to glue this on permanently, the trick is leave a little sanding dust in there. It looks like it's on pretty solid now though. All right, the next phase of the job is we're going to spend about a half an hour or so with some 320 paper. We'll do it off camera and just smooth sand this in. Now remember, we're going from a joint that's very hard. Paint surfaces are hard. Wood is soft, so we want to blend that in as well as we can. And then what we're going to do is overlap the paint out onto the hard surface so we can get that edge as good as possible. And remember, one of the primary things here we're trying not to add a lot of weight here. This plane is already heavy enough. And George Ventrini was just here, and he said one of the things that works real good to remove oil, it's too late to try it now, one of the things that works real well to remove oil is lighter fluid. So I'll try that on one of the next projects, but thanks to George for that tip. And of course, he's done a lot of real good repairs. All right, now after it's sanded, I'm taking some thin CA, putting it in the little cup that the Dremel wheels come in. Get yourself a whole thing of Q-tips because you're going to need them. And just start at one end, take a few drops, rub it in with the Q-tips, go over the seam and out onto the raw wood a little bit. And just keep replacing. You have to go real fast. You can't dilly-dally. Now what it does, it picks up the sawdust and it gives you an edge where the wood ends and the CA joint begins, so that now you can sand it, and from this point on we'll use 320 or 400. And we'll just, now that instead of being a razor edge line, we have a spot where it's hard and a spot where it's soft, and a little bit of a blend here. And the idea is to get a spot where you don't have a direct line, where the wood is soft, the material's hard, and you always have that ridge. Otherwise you're going to sand forever and you'll never get a nice neat where one ends and one begins. Any repair, you have to be able to get both surfaces hard before you finalize the fits. And again, I'm not going for some kind of concourse finish here. What I am going for is a fuel-proof, decent looking finish. We're all really hoping we can get one more year out of this guy. And then we'll give him the Midgley. And you can say I said that on camera. Of course, Midgley will have to give me his paycheck for the next year, but that's okay too. Okay, now we just let that kick off without kicker. Let it kick off and we'll go work on the nose for a while. Okay, now while that's drying, we'll get some of this tape off the nose, the epoxy. We did this with 5-minute epoxy, so it should be pretty quick. And now what we'll do is we'll get the sanding done. Block sand this in, and we'll hot stuff the edges, harden it up as best we can. If you wanted to do a really super duper duper job, you could take the engine out and all that stuff, but this plane is so old, really not looking to make a kind. In fact, it already has been a concourse winner, so who cares? This plane will live. Let's hope we get another season out of it. Okay, now we're going to sand. Let's get that. Going to sand that edge down, harden it up. Feels pretty good right now. Oh, one other trick. What I've been doing, maybe I forgot to put this on camera, is when you sand and you sand into the paint, it comes off on the sand. Just keep throwing it away. You got to throw away 50, 60 sheets of paper, because as you're sanding, it picks up the paint. This is just some of it. I have the whole load of it over here from just sand. Just keep throwing it away. Hey, it's expensive, but it's the only way you're going to get the job done. You certainly threw our package of Q-tips here already anyway. All right, the rest of this is going to be just sanding and filling over and over until we get these fits just right. Okay, obviously the next step, all the sanding is the preliminary sanding done. Get all the dust and dirt off it and grease and the fingerprints. More M600. We'll be ready to put the first coat of finish on there. Now, in laying out the tape here, keep in mind, Frost King tape, not so good for this. What we're trying to do is we want to go through a bunch of the tape that we have and find a roll that has the stickiest glue. The best way to do that is go try to find a roll of tape that's 10 years old. The real sticky glue, otherwise it's not going to stick to this finish here. So we're going to go through a bunch of this tape, figure out which is the stickiest so we can lay out the paint line. Now what we did is we checked out a bunch of different rolls of tape here to find the stickiest one that we can. And we haven't really made a decision here yet. Some of this real old tape, as tape gets older, it seems to get stickier and stickier. I had a real old roll. Now I have a roll of this striping tape that comes apart in stripes. I remember this was super sticky. So again, oh yeah, this is the real McCoy here. Anyway, I'm going to try a couple of these off camera. See which one is the stickiest. This is too old. This is dried out. Which one I could lay out the tape line with the most effectively. Now it looks like, at least with the little test that I've done, it looks like this purple stuff is about the stickiest. You almost can pick the plane. You sure wouldn't want to use this on a new finish. Anyway, we'll give this a little try. See if we can lay out at least the paint edge with this. I don't even know. There's no name on this. It's an off-brand striping tape. Anyway, after trying all the other ones, they're definitely not going to hold on this. You need a real sticky tape. And I got all these Technitape tapes and just trying to figure out whichever one, and in a pinch, if all else fails, you go buy striping tape. And then hope you can get it off when you're done. Again, this is the part of the job that's difficult. You have to get this in your little technology area here. You got to get the right tape when you want to do repairs. You can't use the same tape that you would use on a new airplane. New airplanes is a totally different thing. You're worried about pulling paint up. In this case, you're worried about tape coming loose. And remember, we're not trying to do a concourse job here. We just want to get a nice even stripe on here. Now what we'll do is, we'll just put the edge with this purple tape. And this is striping tape of some brand. There's no one label on it. I don't even remember what I had this for, a motorcycle paint job or something. Anyway, this will just be our edge, and from this point out we can go with normal 3M tape. Again, just keep in mind what we're trying to do here. We don't want this job to take a year and a half either. You know, we have a lot of other shop projects to work on. We don't want to devote a whole week to doing this. A couple of days, that's it. Hopefully tomorrow or the next day we'll get some of the finish on here. Okay. Now of course we need to mask this off with some kind of 3M tape, but the 3M tape will stick to this real well now. Okay, with all that masked off, we're about ready to put the first coat of clear on. And what we're going to do is put 2 or 3 coats of acrylic clear on here, let it sit overnight, and then tomorrow try to sand it down a little and get some finish on here. What we did, we have an old jar of acrylic clear with a little bit of 3608S in it. And we're just going to try to get 1 coat on about every hour or so. Get 2 or 3 coats on. And then we'll try to get some kind of filler on here. Again, we're just trying to build up a little substrate. Go right up to the tape. The clear will seal the tape, obviously. Again, we're not trying to make a major project out of this. That's one thing to keep in consideration. We want this like a quick and dirty job. And I haven't decided whether we're going to spray or brush the rest of this on yet, based on what time constraint we have here. And we are working within a time frame because we're also doing, at the time we're doing this, we're spending about 10 hours a day renovating houses and getting our bathroom and kitchen in and all whatnot. So anyway, belabor the point. We'll get a coat on this every hour or so. An hour is usually all it takes for us to dry. We'll dust it off and then decide what kind of filler we're going to put on. Okay, we got 2 coats of acrylic on there now. We're letting them all dry up. Looks like it's going to dry up in another hour or so. Now I got these great little splotches on the bench from the hot stuff. Remember that? Well, I got out the old ice scraper. Remember that trick from, I don't know, last year's tape or whatever. Now's a good time while you're waiting for that to dry. Clean up the whole bench and we could start working on these wheel pants. Remember this old tool from last year? It's like a razor blade ice scraper. Well, you have those dots of hot stuff on the table that never come off and chew up the finish. From this point on, we want to keep it nice and neat. This is a good time just to go over the glass table with the old ice scraper. This is a really good tip. Pick one of these up. When I bought this, I don't remember, it was $5 or $6. I was all excited and nervous that it was a lot of money to pay for a tool I wasn't going to use. Well, I really did get my money's worth out of it 1,000,000 times already. A great little tool. From this point on, you want to work off a perfectly clean glass table to do the rest of the finishing and sanding, and we can vacuum up now, get that all out of the way. And we'll look forward to tomorrow putting the rest of that finish on. Now while the rest of that acrylic's drying up, we're definitely going to pull these wheel pants apart and replace them, sand them down, and maybe even get a fresh coat of paint on them. Definitely we'll be replacing the wheels. In fact, because we'll be flying over grass, you know, 90% of the time now at the Circle Burner field, now that Bradley's is gone, I think we'll go to the next size larger wheel. Into this probably 4 or 5 days, and we really do want to expedite this. We also, in the time we were waiting for the dope to dry, we went and got our new wheels on here, wet sanded this all down with 320, and this is ready now to be refinished also. This really took a beating flying at the Circle Burner field for last season or so. Alright, so let's get on with seeing if we can get some color on this guy today. Now you can see the acrylic really does leave a nice finish on. Now what we're going to try to do, and we're going to spend a little time today sanding this, trying to get it smooth, but not going through down into the rare wood. Just get enough sanding on this so that we can get the silver on and then get on with the finish. One thing you notice about sanding the acrylic, when it's nice and hard, it'll dust right off on the paper. If it balls up, you usually let it dry another day. And what I'm doing is just sanding it dry with 320, sand a little bit. When the paint starts to ball up, just throw the paper away. In sanding this little spot out, we'll probably use maybe 5-10 sheets of sandpaper, I don't know yet. Just keep moving your hand on the sandpaper. So this is still a little soft, it's still balling up. Move it a little bit. Try to sand against the grain, because again, there'll be no tissue on this. We're not going for the concourse here, we're just trying to get this sealed up nicely. Do one little spot at a time. And you'll notice the acrylic in 2 or 3 coats makes a nice base. Makes a base that you actually can paint right over. And if this was a summer day, you could do this outside. Let's get this on a close-up. You could do this in one day if it was nice and warm out. Too bad it's cold out today. Now you can see what this, it's just coming right off. And when it balls up like this, we just get rid of the sandpaper. Let's get this up on a macro lens. You do get this balling up, but what happens is, as soon as you get some sand a little while, you can scrape this off with your fingernail, or in my case, I'm just throwing the sandpaper away. I had a couple little spots, little dings I filled in with the vinyl spackle. just so this could get moving along. I don't know if we can get this up close now. But we have a halfway decent base coat here to start our finish on. Well, I'll just finish the rest of this off camera, and we'll mask it off and get ready to start painting. Kind of a nice, quick, neat way to put a little repair on a plane. And I guess that's what I want to show most of all on this, is how you can get a repair on a plane without having to worry about making it take a week or so. You can try to get this done like in a weekend, couple of days, and get it back in the air. All right, after cleaning it up real good, we're going to get our, I'm sure you've seen this method before, tin foil and tape, a la Walt Prey, mask off. Since we're only painting the bottom of the plane, we can do this in one shot. Now we have our compressor over here, but we don't have it set up in a spray booth environment, so we're going to paint this outside. We're going to have to wait until we get a little bit of weather that we can paint this. But we'll get it all masked off and ready to go. If you haven't seen this method, check out the tapes from last year on the Cardinal Sin. We had a pretty good, even on a tweener, even had some techniques for doing this. Okay, next step is we're going to take this outside and throw a coat of Sig Silver on it.
Clouds tonight down to 32, and Thanksgiving Day tomorrow, clouds, maybe a shower or two with a high of 50. 35 at Madison Square.
This is our little makeshift. You can see we're up on sawhorses and on foam. It looks like it's going to rain any minute, and we just wanted to get a quick coat of paint on this before it rains. But I guess one of the things you can learn from this is that you really don't need million-dollar equipment to get a job done. This job will do just as well as when we get our spray booth done in the spring or summer, I hope. Okay, what we did, we got a little test on the red by doing the wheel pan assembly. Now we can get over there and go out and do the mainframe, of course. Always do the little parts first. And you can see we got kind of a little makeshift area here for spraying up the candy apple and the silver and the whatever. Little makeshift area, but we're very soon going to have ourselves a spray booth. Now we'll just let this dry up out here for about 10 minutes and we'll bring it back inside. Hey! Hey! Now anytime you spray lacquer like this, a good tip is lacquer, dope, anything except enamel, polyurethane, and epoxy is let the tape dry overnight. We've let this dry overnight and we'll obviously pull off the tape real carefully and try to finish this up tonight. We want to get on with some of our new projects that we've been planning for so long here. Anyway, when you try to pull a tape off prematurely, you almost always get that lousy, ratty line. So we'll do this real carefully. All we're going to do is get the gear shimmed up now just the way we want it, and this project will be finished. Now what we did, remember the old trick with the striping tape? Put a little accent stripe on here just to dress it up a little bit. And of course we'll wait a week or so and then hit this with a little bit of rubbing compound. Alright, that little touch-up stripe on that, we're going to put this guy away now. We're finished with him. Put a coat of wax on him and just get ready to get out there and fly. Time to go flying. Now, one of the most satisfying repairs that I've ever done, I helped Craig Gunder in 1992, just before the Nationals. Craig only had one good competitive plane, the Big Black BJ. And of course had a flying accident and was very depressed and pretty much wanted not to go to the Nationals and was going to drop out of competition. And you know, the bottom line here is not all of us have an Air Force like I have the Polish Air Force over there with 15 airplanes. Well, some people only have one or two good planes, or some people only have one. And if you only have one, that's when it's even more important to be able to repair it if the need comes up. Now this was right before the Nationals. Craig really had his heart set on going, and I gave him a hand repairing this, and it involved Russ Hunsberger doing about 8 hours of special driving and making some special trips and some special, I don't even remember because it was 2 years ago, but it was an extensive team effort to get Craig back in the air. And as I look back at this video, as I was looking at it, it brought back a lot of good memories of what this hobby is really about. People helping people, competitors helping people. Somewhere either in this volume or in the next volume, we already have enough footage for the second volume of this tape. We're going to show the some of the other crashes that have been team efforts. Mike Pratt's at the Nats for one. And that's really what part of what makes this worth doing and worth having a group of friends that'll pitch in behind you when you need help. This was a repair that we did for Craig. The tail of Craig Gunder's plane out here, baking in the sun with baking the fiberglass cloth. It was in many little pieces. The horn was out, the horn was bent, whole back end was busted off the plane. So letting this glass dry up now, we hope we can, before the day's over anyway, at least have the plane in one piece. We got a team of guys here. Hopefully between all of us we'll get most of the repair work done, and Craig will still be able to fly the Nats. You can see we're right in the middle of getting this repair on Craig's plane. Got the tail sitting over there. Got some of the glass work done. Got a couple of the little pieces of the body straightened out so far, but the hours are going to go by before this is finished. This is going to be a labor-intensive program, so we'll get as much of this as we can. It's for Craig's memorabilia, Craig's photo album. 3 days before the Nats.
Yeah, he's good. So I'm going to go and help Wendy give me the red flag over here. I better start helping. Okay. Are you gonna be around most of? I guess we're gonna be here most of the day.
I guess we're here for the duration
We'll be
until
here
this thing.
we're
We're gonna put a 51 in and go fly it tonight.
Yeah.
Don't even tell them.
I tell you, Windy flew one flight this morning in that horrendous wind, and I was scored at 580. It was perfect. It was perfect. And poor Jimmy's over there started getting all blown and all up and down.
He's still over there flying when I left.
No,
Where? Over at,
Over at Bradley's.
you didn't dig that up yet, huh, Lynn?
it's
Not yet. They're thinking about it though.
Plus his front ends aren't built like this. It's a big difference. Big, big, big. Yep.
His battery's starting to get a flash
Don't
on
take
it.
front end. Otherwise, you're gonna have all kinds of.
Can't make any the
For
flaps any
longevity.
bigger on that, huh, Wendy?
Oh, sure.
What's that?
Can't make the
3 or 4
flaps any
meets,
bigger on
you
that,
know.
huh?
No, I'm not the designer. Jim's the designer.
Yeah. And you know, vibrates and you get shit running, and then it's tight, and you get that shit you think you gotta run. You never know. Repeatability just isn't there.
Knows what this is like.
Fine.
Jeff was here the last time when we fixed your yellow plane.
We had about 5 guys. It was kind of a.
Now we have to make a patch, a new rudder, and plug some of these pieces here.
It's amazing.
Well, we got all the heavy work done. Now it's just, it's all cosmetic.
All the damn
The sucker
plugs.
is lined up good too.
All the damn plugs are feeling good.
All the plugs are in it good.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Let's get as much of the paint off of the back of this as we can.
Okay.
Now we got the repair all sanded in. We had to make a new rudder, parts of a new rudder anyway. Do a lot of filling here and a lot of sanding. We're going to just put a lick and a promise, minimum 1 coat of black on this. So hopefully he can assemble it and fly it tomorrow. No, there it is in one piece. Total time for repair, 10, 5, 6.5 hours. For 3 men, about an 18-hour repair. Too bad we're not getting paid by the hour here. Anyway, Greg will have this back tonight, and well, I bet she's going to be a happy puppy. It's ready to fly. .30, and we're getting ready to try to get this in Russ's car for the trip back to Pennsylvania. So it'll be a thrill. I don't know if we're going to be able to even do this. Well, we'll give it a try. Sure?
Can I put something on top of this?
Yeah, just I got some foam in the garage too if we need it. It's been an amazing day, huh? This is unbelievable. Now to close out this first volume, we have a couple of little excerpts from tapes that I went through, and believe me, I've been looking at tapes till my face is blue the last week, that show little minor repairs, little minor touch-ups, things that you might or might not be able to use. I think this would be a good way to end Volume 1. And then we're going to start accumulating footage for Volume 2, which I hope very soon will be available. And I hope, most of all, I guess #1 thing is that nobody else crashes for the rest of this year, for the rest of eternity, including me. I've had my share. I have paid my dues. Anyway, we hope that that you're learning some little things, or at least being inspired toward knowing that you can fix these things when you have to. Or, for instance, that you'll have some little tips that'll save you some time in the future, save you some effort, save you some frustration. A lot of this stuff is stuff that's not published in magazines, or if you don't have a friend in the body shop industry, for instance, you would not have access to the information. You always, please, always feel free. I'm hard to get a hold of on the phone. I know, renovations and everything. But we hope that's going to change real soon. In the meantime, leave a message. I'll call you back if you need to know something about repairing a plane. I will really make a special effort at trying to get a hold of you. I know it's important when somebody crashes. They really do need to know. And in fact, many people that I know have crashed, I will just be sending them this video out right away and not even asking for the parts need to be repaired on this guy. Now the first step in this, obviously, we're going to prep saw everything down, clean this paint up as much as we can. Always a good idea before you're going to do one of these repairs is get the plane degreased as much as possible. In this case, we got to do 2 spots on the bottom of the wing to the candy apple paint, and one spot on the top block, Russ?
One little black spot.
1 spot on the top. So we'll try to get some of this little touch-up on video. We have the M600, which is the equivalent of Prepsol, and a little spray jar, a Windex bottle. Spray it on, sand it with 1200, and wipe it down. That's step 1. Step 2, get the little tape out, mask off the little edge that we're going to be doing, and then we'll try to mix up the paint, and then that gets to be the difficult part. Get the paint mixed up so it matches. Always a little bit of mix and match there to get the right color.
Well, it's on the bottom. That's one break.
Okay, now I got Rusty sanding this with the M600 and some 1200 paper, getting it nice and dull, nice and flat. Go right up to the tape. Don't go out over the tape.
Get rid of that.
What we did, we took a little bit of, let's get this little spot. Put a little bit of red lead in here, and you got to do this in a couple layers. Then we'll block sand this down, block sand that down.
That looks pretty good.
Coming nice and smooth. Use plenty of that M600. Don't fool with the M600.
Don't skip.
Keep it wet. And just don't get the edge of the sandpaper. You don't want to get it up under the tape.
You kind of straddle both edges.
Yeah, you want to straddle both sides. You don't want to get the corner of the sandpaper up under the tape. Then you don't get a nice edge.
You need to be screwed in.
So we'll give ourselves a little time to do this and come back to this in a few minutes. This is a very important part of maintaining a fleet of airplanes, is doing the repair work. And Russ is one of the best at getting the sanding and the little delicate work done. Good employee. Too bad I don't pay him.
Coffee and donuts.
A box of donuts for 1 wing panel. Anyway, all right, we'll let Russ sand the rest of this out, and we'll start mixing up the paint.
Looks good. Looks good, Wayne.
Yeah, just keep at it. All right, after Russ sanded out the whole area, we put on a second coat of red lead here, just to build up the paint surface. We'll let this dry now for about 15 minutes. And then we'll get into, well, we still have to do the top. There's actually 3 spots that are going to be repaired on this plane today. And we're doing the bottom ones first because they're going to have the deepest amount of red lead. Always do the bottom ones first. Then you get your technique down pat. Like anything else, do the bottom first, always. And then while things are working, you get up to speed, you can flip the plane over and the top will be perfect. Alright, we're going to start on the outer wing. We got the inner wing repaired and pretty much just waiting for the red lead to dry. Now this will be basically the same procedure on the outside wing. Then we're going to flip it over while this is all drying and work on a top block. There's a ding in the top block too. So that'll be the next step. Yeah, just keep the area wet. Now watch the technique that Russ is using here. Got the M600 in a spray can. Just feel it with your finger. When you can't feel it anymore, then you know you've got enough. You've got it sanded down enough. And on this side, we have to go and do the black stripe too. Yeah, just give it a little shot with the M600. block sanded out. Got a nice soft block, a piece of soft balsa wood, 1200 sandpaper. Get it nice and smooth. A lot of people underestimate how important it is to be able to repair a plane. It's really annoying when you get a plane that's a year old, it's all trimmed out, it flies like the wind, you're used to flying it, you're real comfortable with it, and it's got a whole bunch of dings and dongs on it. Now another thing we're going to try to do, Russ just brought up a good point, and I'll mention it on the video. The leading edge of this has taken a beating from putting it in and out of the car, and then people launching it with rings and stuff, so we're going to mask off the leading edge into a black de-icer boot. And then obviously block sand it down the way we are, and then go ahead and spray the leading edge black, just a nice black lacquer job. And so he has some black metal flake on here, and we'll have that. It'll coordinate with the lettering real nice. It'll add one trim color, and it'll protect the leading edge. Now if you have to patch up, when you have to patch up a white leading edge, it's murder. When you're going to patch up a black de-icer boot, it's a piece of cake. Kind of getting down there? Okay, just keep, you got to be able to, that you can't feel it at all before we go and mask it off. Pretty good?
Pretty good, yeah.
Okay.
A little depression here in the black. We may have to. That's
All right.
red we don't need. And on silver.
Yeah, the little black spot's going to need another shot of red lead.
And here's the black.
Okay, Russ is going to put on a second coat. What we're using is a razor blade and nitrostain, and just troweling it on with a razor blade. You can't do nitrostain in one giant gulp. You got to do it in 3 or 4 little layers. See, what's going to happen, Russ, that shrinks down into the paint. In 10 minutes, that'll shrink down, and you'll have to put another, we'll block sand it out and put another little coat on. What this allows you to do, though, is take a plane that's a year old and make it virtually brand new. Even if worse, the worst that could happen is you could sand the whole clear off and put new clear on a plane if you wanted to.
Completely redo it.
Okay, that's going to dry for a while.
Everything else is looking good here.
All right, let's start masking it off. We can mask this wing panel off. We got one wing panel masked and ready to go. We're masking off the second one.
Let me just dry it again. Clean it. Hold on a second.
Okay, now one of the things I want to mention this on a video because a lot of people ask this all the time. You cannot sand silver paint. So what we've done here, and Russ is doing the other side while we're talking, is I've covered up the silver as we're sanding it. You do not want to sand silver. You'll always see the scratches in the silver when you put the clear on. What we did is we put a dummy piece of tape out and block sanded this. This is about the 3rd time oh, this is nice. This one come out nice, Russ. Okay, we've block sanded this out. This side is already done. He's going to pull up the dummy silver. This is all sanded smooth. You can't feel it at all. It's like it's not even there. Wipe this down with the prep swall and then put on a new piece of tape. Now the new piece of tape will be actually for the paint. And then we're going to go out, mask off the green first, spray the green while the green's drying. We'll work on the top. So we actually can do this whole repair, including the final coats of paint and everything, in one day. And this will be like a brand new plane when it's finished. It won't be, you won't have any of the scratches or dings or anything. And what this allows them to do now, when we go to Lubbock, this will be the backup plane, but instead of having a backup plane, it's all chewed up and beat up. It's a proven plane. He's got a lot of flights on it. He knows the plane inside out. And it'll be like brand new. You can rebuff it out a week before the Nats, and it'll still be a front row plane, first or second row plane.
It's all prepped.
Okay, she's all prepped. We got the compressor set at 25 pounds. Give me some hose there, Russ. Now what's important, here's a couple of good things. When this plane was actually painted, Russ had the foresight to save some of the actual paint that we did the trim with, so this should be a relatively good match. And we really don't have a lot of extra paint. We have enough to do this stuff. You want to open that door? Make sure the dog doesn't get out, Russ.
Yeah, hold on.
Open the door and make sure the door upstairs is shut, that Jetson doesn't get out. Now whenever you're doing a touch-up like this, one of the criteria is not to put the paint on too thick, too fast. Because what'll happen is you'll melt the substrate, the paint underneath it'll melt, and you'll have a mess. That looks like it's going on pretty decent. Let's see if we can get this one done. So you're going to need 2 coats to cover that red lead up, but I want to resilver the whole thing. Now normally if this was candy apple, we'd have to resilver the whole plane. It would be a necessity to resilver it. Again, we might be able to do some of this painting outside later, but right now this is just such a small area. I don't think we're going to have to do it. 30? Okay, that's close enough. All right, that's good for 1 coat. Okay, the first coat, we'll let that dry. Let that dry now and we'll be all set. Now rather than putting it on in 1 thick coat, it's better to put it on, wait 15 minutes, put the second coat on. The problem you're always going to run into is if you spray it on too thick or too fast, the thinner's going to go down and you're going to wind up having alligator skin, bubbles, ripples, all kinds. It's going to just soften up the paint underneath. You want to do this as dry as possible. Actually, if we had some, you could use touch-up thinner too. Spot repair thinner, not 3608S. We just don't have any, so we're going to make do with the 3608S.
3613 is.
36. You got the door open, right?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, I don't breathe too much of this thing.
That was right fast today.
Alright, we don't want to make it too hot. Now that's not a good idea to really make it hot. I just want to get some of this to gas off real quick. Relatively cool day outside. Yeah, that's fine. That's going to be good.
Side looks good.
Okay, let me have the compressor. It's good. He's alive. And the reason we have to check the compressor constantly is because I have a leak in the tank. After 25 years, the compressor looks like it's getting ready to give up the ghost here. After painting half of the planes on the planet, I guess it's time we let them have a rest.
I'm going to bury that one for lunch.
Yeah, that's coming out fine. That'll be fine. See, I want to put it on thin like this. I don't want to put it on thick. Now, when you buff the bottom of the plane, you'll be able to buff right over this, but there's not going to be a lot of clear on top of it, so you just buff it nice and easy. You know, don't go crazy on it. All right, we'll let this dry another 10 minutes. Give it 1 more coat. And that ought to do it, boy. This side's perfect.
Looks great. That's really dry.
Yeah, this one's perfect. I'm just trying to keep the paint to a minimum too, not over paint the heck out of it. Just remember, let it dry for at least a week before we go sanding it or buffing it out.
Great job.
Yeah, that's good.
Great.
Okay, 1 color's in the bank. Let this dry, then we'll start on the purple. Alright, now obviously the next step is going to be we're going to pull off the paper, back mask it so that the purple is exposed, and then spray the purple. Same thing we did right here, but we're just going to change the paint in the gun now and do the purple. And then the last thing of the day, of course, do the black.
What about the extra charge for the shipping?
It should all be on that one bill, George.
80.74?
Yeah, 87, I think. What Russ is doing here in this this step is we're taking, and show him how you did the tape, Russ. On the so only 1/8 of an inch sticks out on a tape. When you do the masking of
Let me
it,
do it over here.
all right. When you do the masking of it and you back mask it, only leave about 1/8 of an inch of tape hanging off over the paper. This way you don't. What's an easy way to make it like it sounding intelligent? You don't run the risk of pulling up the new fresh paint. Now we just did the green
We'll
stripe.
just do this too. We'll
Yeah. Show them that thing.
get a fuzzy eyes.
Get the fuzzy eyes, defuzzied.
Well, we're just leave about an 1/8 inch hang over the edge.
And if you just leave a little bit, now normally if the paint is dry on this, we'll let it dry for half an hour or so, even an hour. Now you can come by and you won't pull up the fresh paint. Yeah,
About
let's
like
put
that.
that.
Just about an 1/8 inch.
Just 1/8 of an inch, okay.
It goes on. We won't pull up the paint over here.
Yeah, you don't run the risk of pulling up that fresh paint. That green is really fresh too.
That would kind of not make your day.
Yeah. All right, then we're going to shoot the green, shoot the purple.
Just get a little tape on here. I think that's everything.
Yeah, that looks pretty good. All right, let's shoot the purple.
Let me check the compressor.
Check that you got 30 pounds there. Yeah, this paint is more thinner in it. You need less.
Mind if I smoke?
You're in charge of accidents, George, our new safety coordinator for the AMA. Maybe you could write a safety column for people.
28 with me.
All right, 28's okay. This paint's a little bit thinner. You could even knock it down to 25 if you want.
That's 26.
All right, that should be good. Yeah, this is a little thinner than the other one. The thinner you make the paint, obviously, the less pressure you need to use. And this paint has some pearl and flake in it, so we really have to get it on. If this was just black, we'd only have to do a little touch-up. We wouldn't have to do the whole area. Because it's all metallics and pearl colors, it's a little harder to blend it all in.
One thing we're on the old tape line, so we're okay.
Just pull it up straight back. Obviously, if you were doing this and you weren't have any time constraints, is to let the paint dry overnight for each color, but we're trying to push this job through, so we want to get it done. Just peel it back nice and slow, take your time. We'll get all the paint off now. Obviously, then we'll just let this sit and dry out a little bit. Anytime you do lacquer, you should let it dry overnight. That would always be the first choice before you peel the tape back. Okay, one wing is really finished now. Russ is taking the tape off the second wing. We have a little black spot there, then we're going to work on a top block. This is the black that we had to repair. We had to put extra little microflakes in the black. Okay, you can see this ding in Russ's top block. And what we're going to do is put a little navigation light in there, because to fix this it would be more work than it really was worth right now. We'll put a little navigation light up there. Kind of looks semi-scale or whatever. It'll be better than looking at a ding too. Now these are the little things that come from Lite-Brite kits. We use these for a lot of things. Number one, to plug up the fuel tubing, but in this case we can make a little navigation light out of it. And it'll cut. There's a lot of ways to repair things. One of the best is to always find some way of covering it up. And I'll show you some of the other little tricks that we've used on this plane to cover up dings in the past. Alright, Russ is going to find a piece of copper tubing in the old copper tubing box that's just a little bit smaller than the diameter of our a little Lite-Brite. Some of the other things you can use Lite-Brites for, the little caps on the fuel tubing. Another little thing you can do is these little car decals to cover up. Somebody puts a fingernail or whatever in your plane, you can cover them up with those decals. Covering up some mistakes is a big important part of keeping a plane looking front rowish. Now remember the old trick of sharpening up the copper tubing here.
Hey, that's going to look pretty good right there, Win.
Yeah, that'll disguise it real well. The guy that had the ballerina had them in the red-green lights in the tips. I remember seeing that. That was a great trick. Charlie Lickleader had a like a Lite-Brite thing on the outboard tip, like it was green, and the inboard tip red or whatever.
How about your Mustang cockpit?
Yeah.
And your jet
yeah.
cockpit?
The old sweeper cockpit had more Lite-Brites in it. Boy, I was afraid to some kid would come along and steal it. Anyway, Russ got a nice hole in there now. Now, you got to be real careful not to drop the thing down through the hole, or we're going to have instant differential flaps.
That's right.
All right, there's the little hole that we have for the what now is going to be a navigation light. Next step, we're going to mix up some 5-minute epoxy here, and epoxy that little light right into the hole on the fuselage, and then we'll start up the leading edge. We want to touch up this leading edge. It has about 100 little thumb marks and nail marks and dings, and it's had a good year of flying out of this guy though. I really can't complain about the day we're actually putting a whole day into this touch-up, but it'll be should be like a new plane when we're finished. The bottom came out almost perfect. I'll bet when it's buffed out you won't even be able to see it. How you doing with the epoxy there, okay?
Yep.
Mix it up good with the Q-tips. Take the Q-tips, put the Q-tips in the hole so you have plenty of epoxy down in the hole. And make sure you don't drop it into the top block or it's gonzo time. You'll need 2 of them, and we only have 1 red one left. You know, drop it in there, get it, force it down in there. We can always wipe the extra off with alcohol here. Again, knowing little ways you can disguise your errors or disguise the somebody puts a fingernail mark in your plane or a gouge in a cowling or whatever. Keep the plane nice and neat looking right as long as the useful life of the plane. You don't have a plane that's going to look 10 years old when it's 1 year old. You'll have one that's 10 years old and look 1 year old.
It's wet this layer, Mindy.
Just take a Q-tips and wipe off the extra alcohol here and you'll be all set. Do it with a Q-tips, it'll be easier. Yeah, just wipe it right off. Clean it up, then take the dry side of the Q-tips
Kind of squeeze it off.
and squeegee it off with the dry side.
There we go. That's set for landing at Teterboro.
Alright, next thing we want to wipe this whole leading edge down real good with the M600. Okay, so you're just going to wipe down the leading edge now, and we'll make like a de-icer boot. That's always a good way to disguise the, you know, obviously this is just one more trick to disguising the damage and the hanger rash and everything. Make a little de-icer boot for the front of the wing. Then we can patch it with the red lead, go right over it with the black, and it'll be a lot less conspicuous. What we may have to do is leave this newspaper on until tomorrow, because you got kind of a thick paint build up here, you know what I mean?
No problem.
So leave this on until tomorrow, it's not going to make any difference. Alright, that's good. Alright, we're going to do the prop next too.
Little maintenance.
And where the wheel pants are chewed up on the bottom, since we have a little bit of paint left over, a little bit of the gold flake paint, we're going to take the wheel pants off and sand them down and do a little touch up on the wheel pants, so even they'll be like brand new. And not many people go through a whole season of flying, especially over grass, and don't chew up the wheel pants, so this will bring them up to like new condition.
They wouldn't help me anyway. Better support.
Now I want to just show that on Russ's ship here, there's a set screw here that goes into a blind nut in the pants, and then the axle screw. So this is a nice way, if you don't use the star washer method, you can use this method. This method works good of just having the extra screw there. Alright, obviously you clean everything with M600, wet sand it with 600, and we'll go right outside and do some touch up on it. I already have the paint in the gun from doing a leading edge. Now, as part of this rebuild program, we did up a show prop for us. Redid the wheel pants with the sparkles, microflakes. Did up the 3-bladed prop. So this plane should be ready to go back into appearance judging. She should be in like new condition. Now we're going to leave the tape on the leading edge of the wing, just for the simple reason that the tape will come off neater and cleaner. And we don't have a silver stripe around it, so we'd like to get that as nice and clean as an edge as possible. So Russ is doing up the